Welcome to our channel. Today we will talk about how confirmation bias affects the way people interpret information, leading them to look for and interpret information in a way that confirms their pre-existing beliefs or ideas. We will also discuss how confirmation bias can be problematic and provide tips on how to think logically and remove bias. Firstly, let's define confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is a cognitive bias that affects the way people process information. It refers to the tendency to seek out, interpret, and remember information that confirms one's pre-existing beliefs or ideas while discounting or ignoring information that contradicts them. This type of bias is present in all individuals and can affect the way they make decisions, process information, and form opinions. Confirmation bias can manifest in many ways. For instance, a person may be more likely to seek out information that supports their existing beliefs, while ignoring or discounting information that contradicts them. They might also be more likely to interpret ambiguous information in a way that supports their beliefs, or they might be more likely to remember information that confirms their beliefs while forgetting information that contradicts them. One common example of confirmation bias can be found in politics. People often seek out news sources that align with their political beliefs and are more likely to trust information that comes from sources they perceive as aligned with their political ideology. This can lead to individuals only being exposed to one side of an issue, which can reinforce their existing beliefs and make it difficult for them to see alternative perspectives. Another example of confirmation bias can be found in scientific research. Scientists might have preconceived ideas about how a particular experiment will turn out, and they might unconsciously look for evidence that supports their hypothesis while ignoring or discounting evidence that contradicts it. This can lead to inaccurate conclusions and can hinder scientific progress. Confirmation bias can also be observed in everyday life. For example, a person might believe that they are unlucky and that bad things always happen to them. As a result, they might interpret every negative event that happens to them as evidence that they are right while discounting or ignoring positive events that happen to them. To think logically and remove bias, it is important to be aware of the presence of confirmation bias and take steps to minimize its effects. One way to do this is to actively seek out information that challenges one's pre-existing beliefs. This can be challenging because it can be uncomfortable to be confronted with information that contradicts one's beliefs. However, it is important to remember that this discomfort is a normal part of the learning process, and that it is only through exposure to alternative perspectives that one can form a more accurate understanding of the world. Another way to minimize the effects of confirmation bias is to approach information with a skeptical mindset. This does not mean that one should automatically discount everything that contradicts their beliefs. Rather, it means that one should critically evaluate the evidence and be willing to revise their beliefs in light of new information. This requires an open-minded approach to learning and a willingness to admit when one is wrong. In addition, it is important to consider the source of the information. Is the source reputable and unbiased? Is the information supported by multiple sources? It is important to look for evidence that is supported by multiple sources, as this can help to minimize the effects of bias. Finally, it is important to consider the context in which the information is presented. Is the information presented in a way that is intended to manipulate the audience? Is it presented in a way that is intended to provoke an emotional response? By being aware of the context in which information is presented, one can be more critical in their evaluation of the evidence. In conclusion, confirmation bias is a cognitive bias that affects the way people interpret information, leading them to look for and interpret information that is presented. Is the information presented in a way that is intended to manipulate the audience? Is it presented in a way that is intended to provoke an emotional response? By being aware of the context in which information is presented, one can be more critical in their evaluation of the evidence. For more such interesting facts and theories, subscribe to our channel.